Hey everyone, thanks for stopping back by. Time for Truth. My name is Christina, and I'm still talking about elderly women in particular, what happened to my mom, in conjunction with what's happening today with the story about Savannah Guthrie's mom. And it could be anybody's mom, not just Savannah's mom, just because she's a national figure and it's getting the publicity that it should. Um, it's been very distressing for those of us who have navigated a journey where, a loved one goes missing because of family interference or, any number of things. We really have to protect our elderly, keeping an eye on them. And that's what I thought I was doing with my mom. I had, you know, uh, full authority under the legal documents that she had executed, a decade before when she became cognitively impaired. I was acting on her behalf in her best interests. And, this is a picture of my mom. She was like, really something. The head of the PTA at one point. She was a scout leader for the cadets and Girl Scouts and Brownies. She was even a Cub pack leader back in the day. My little brother got his Eagle Scout. Um, you know, she supported her kids as, she was raising them up, being transported all around the countryside, supporting, a military officer. So in her later years, she built a life for herself. She loved the beach. That's me and her at the beach. And then, she got sick. And I was trying to act on her behalf and in her best interest with what I knew she wanted to have done. And the path was not easy. It was a very difficult path. What we think might happen with our, loved ones might not always be the case. So she became very sick with her dementia. In fact, there were at least 3 incidences with the state police here in Delaware, one of which was when my siblings called the police from out of state saying that my mother was being held hostage. And my husband and I happened to not be home at the time that this call was apparently made, but we were at a HOA meeting in our neighborhood firehouse. Come down our road, and there's like 5 or 6 state police troopers in our driveway, in front of the house. It was crazy. And we pull in, and the state troopers, of course, they don't know what's going on other than that they've been in the house and talking to my mom and clearly know that she is not in her right mind, that she's safe, like in the house. It's not like she's been left abandoned while not being able to fend for herself in some fashion. No, we had left the house as usual to do an errand, and she's fine, and everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, one of my siblings decided that they would call in a false police report against us, that my mother was being held hostage. And so, of course, we invited the police officers in, the state troopers. They're walking around our house, um, complimenting us on how tidy the house is. We invite them, of course, they've already seen it, but to see my mom's room, the food in the refrigerator. She's clearly well cared for. But this was the first attempt by my siblings to interfere in a negative fashion. And so I should have taken that to heart and understood that their intentions were not with my mom's best interest at heart, and certainly not mine. Because what later it came about was that, my mom got worse with her dementia and Alzheimer's. I continued caring for her and using the medical community, the mental health community, trying to get her the help, getting her the help, neurology, all of it. Um, and ultimately her being hospitalized, after threatening to kill me and herself, throwing herself down the stairs. I mean, these are the things that dementia does to a person. Accusing me of stealing her things. We're living in the same house. Her things are not being stolen. A police officer, state trooper, one day, she had gone over to the senior center because I encouraged her with her art to do. In fact, one of her art pieces is right here, which I'll share. This was when she lived in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm just going to cover her name just for privacy purposes. But there it is. I mean, just amazing art. She's very talented. So I had encouraged her to, go to the senior center. She was doing that, driving her car, and then a police officer, a state trooper, followed her home, and he was like, "Your mom can't drive anymore. She's making accusations, against you about stealing her things." And so apparently, instead of going to her art class, she was going there and telling them that, her things were being stolen, and she couldn't remember, her birth date. It's just sad things, where things progress and the disease takes hold. And so a part of that was, right before that, probably, I don't know, a month before that, we were going to a mental health appointment together, both of us together, to try and sort things out, help her acclimate to how she was forgetful. I got her a little voice recorder, just tried to do all the things. But anyways, we were on our way there, and she wanted to drive, so I wanted to keep her with her autonomy and independence for as long as I could. But I witnessed her almost cause a car accident. And that's in the records with the therapist, because I told the therapist. So then when the trooper followed her home and said, she can't drive anymore, well, then that's when I had the talk with my mom. You really, truly cannot drive anymore. And now it's not me saying this, it's the state trooper. So we put her car on blocks right then. And that was kind of it was a tough time. Nobody wants to have their freedom taken from them. But, her freedom wasn't taken because I drove her everywhere that she needed to go, wherever she wanted to go, whenever she wanted to go. And it wasn't at that point like she even wanted to go anywhere. So it was me having to encourage her to do things. I got her set up with a day, sent her so that she could get out of the house and go and do things, had home nurses coming in. So it wasn't just me witnessing the decline. It was also the healthcare community and their records. Because at the end of the day, what I was trying to do was to help my mom to age at home with her loving daughter, who she had given legal authority to act on her behalf if what happened was what was happening happened, and it did. So at any rate, this was in 2017 is when things started really going downhill for her, 2016 even. So I was taking care of her house where she was living a mile away, because we had moved down here after she asked us to move down here because she was having trouble even at that time, maintaining the house and doing the things. But she was still active and still doing, some senior center activities and things like that. And I was in daily contact with her by phone. We were coming down on the weekends, because she was my friend and she was my mother, and these were the things I wanted to do. And to make sure that she was safe, as she aged, put up cameras, at her place on the main line before she left, and also at the new place. We knew her neighbors, so that in the event if anything happened, we had, and we were, 2 hours away. So she continued to decline. She ultimately moved in with us. We had a big house, so she had still her autonomy, still a place of her own. But it just, when you have dementia, things don't get better, they get worse. Sadly. So at that point, when my mom threatened to throw herself down the stairs and then threatened to kill me and my husband, Like, I took that seriously, especially because we had a big staircase in the house. I mean, I didn't really think that my mom was going to kill me and my husband, but I also knew that she was not doing well. So, um, got her the help again, the intervention that she needed, got her into the hospital. Um, at that point, it was okay. She's going to be fine with assisted living. Then it was, no, she needs, memory care. So then putting her in memory care, then memory care being apparently in the midst of a transition in management. So there was a turnover in staff, I later came to find out. At any rate, there was interference from these people who had then called my mom being held hostage to then accusing me of stealing $400,000. I'm driving one day thinking that my mom's safe in her memory care unit. And I get a call and I can hear that, like, I don't know, beep kind of sound, like it sounded official. And then I heard somebody saying, "This is Detective so-and-so, and we're investigating, elder theft or funds," and I'm like, yes, sir, I'm driving. Can you give me just a moment as I find a safe place to pull over? Like, shocking. Which was the intention. That's what these people who filed these fake reports against me, that was their intention. It is the art of war. It is to shake down the victim after absconding with the actual victim. I was just a byproduct. My mom was the actual victim. At any rate, I pull over, I'm talking to this detective, and he tells me, yes, so now, because my siblings had already been in touch with the police department about things, apparently, with specifically the call that my mom was being held hostage. I later found out it was my sibling in Utah who called in this false police report. So now I'm being accused. They couldn't get me on my mom being held hostage. So they try to get me on, she stole $400,000. So I pull over, I'm talking to the detective. I'm like, okay, I'm really sorry that they are using these police resources to do this, because this in itself should be a crime. Of course it isn't, because nobody wants to go down that road, but they'll call me and question me. So I'm like, no, I didn't take $400,000 from my mother. Like, my mother never had $400,000. What are these people talking about? And the detective was like, can you send me the bank statements, yada, yada? And I'm like, no problem, whatever you need. So I turn around from where I'm going and come back home and fax off all the documents over to the police department. So I was briefly investigated. I was completely cleared of stealing $400,000 or any kind of sum of money from my mother. So these people, my siblings, my mother's, estranged adult children, they were also disinherited by name in her will, which they didn't know this. They should know it, but nobody, to my knowledge, conveyed it to them, because my mother did her will with a lawyer in Pennsylvania and then gave it to me for safekeeping, a copy. And I never conveyed it to my siblings that they were disinherited. So they should have known, because they'd ignored their mother for 2 decades. However, so I've now had this detective call me. So then I'm worried about my mom over in, Berlin, where she was in her memory care unit. And I'm like, what is happening here? What is going on? And then I find out that there's been a change in the power of attorney. So my aunt, actually, my mom's sister, got involved and hired a lawyer. Uh, just shocking. They changed the power of attorney, which then gave my mother's sister the ability to just take my mother out of that place and take her anywhere she wanted. This is my aunt that my mom had like no relationship with, other than that they were related by blood. Um, this is the aunt who had, it's a long story, but like, yeah, there was sexual abuse in the family. And it was, that aunt who then interfered with my mom's care. And that allowed my sibling to come in from Utah and take my mom. The police chief told me, oh, they told me that the facility told me that they said they were taking your mom on an extended vacation. I'm like, extended vacation to where? Nobody knew. So here's this elderly woman who is incompetent. She's in a memory care unit. And nobody can tell me where she is now. It was insane. So the lawyer that changed it, the first one, Susan Seidel Tillman in Salisbury, when I talked to her, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on? Why would you do this? My mom is not competent. Oh, well, it's not the same as changing a will. I mean, it's, you know, she just, you need to account for the money. I'm like, account for what money? Like, I like, talk to the detectives. And then by the time that I'm trying to hire a lawyer, because the Pennsylvania lawyer won't, oh, now it's Maryland, you can't do anything. I'm not licensed in Maryland, only in Pennsylvania. I'm like, what is going on? So my mom is now a vulnerable woman with nobody advocating for her other than me, and I'm getting shut down at every turn. So I try hiring a lawyer in Maryland. I can't get through to a lawyer. Nobody will take the case. So, you know, by this time I'm telling the lawyer that the state police have been involved, you know, that she's been hospitalized twice. I'm looking at my notes because it was all so much, you know, in between hospitalizations, we had been in assisted living. Now she was in memory care. The progression had happened. That, you know, I'd been trying to get her help, that she had been told she can't drive anymore, that the neurologist was involved, that now that they were accusing me of these criminal acts that I have been completely cleared of. And the lawyers are just like their heads spinning, like, who's this crazy woman and what the heck is she talking about? And that was exactly how I was received, with calling law firms, not only in Delaware, where I'm located and where my mom once owned property. Once she no longer owned property, Delaware could care less. So Maryland, okay, so she was in a facility. So I called the ombudsman. I called the state offices for elder abuse. Nobody cared. It's a civil matter. That's what they said. So I said, fine, then I'll go get a lawyer. I couldn't get a lawyer to touch it. Nobody went. As soon as I said Susan Seidel Tillman's name, there was a distinct change in the atmosphere and nobody wanted to touch it, as if she's the Queen of Salisbury or something. I don't even know. But what the Queen of Salisbury, Susan Seidel Tillman, did was she sent my mother to this man, Alan A. Anderson. This man doesn't know my mother from anybody. This man wrote false allegations against me. He wrote things that he should have been brought up on charges. But no, he ran off to Arizona instead and became a director of something or another there at their elder center, overseeing elders after he did this to my mother. Here's what he wrote. During the interview, the patient did demonstrate findings consistent with moderately severe dementia. Her score on the mini mental state exam was 13 out of 30. She had evidence of severe short-term memory disturbance with inability to recall 3 unrelated items after demonstrating an ability to register them. She could not recall any of the 3, even with category hints or multiple choice offerings. That's how sick my mother was. And that's what Susan Seidel Tillman did. She interfered in my care of my mother, and she caused serious harm. And this man committed fraud. Right there, Alan A. Anderson. You can look him up on the internet. He's in Arizona now, Tucson. I didn't find out about any of this until the probate matter opened after my mother had died. Disgusting abuse of elders right here. and it was my mother. My mother had specifically disinherited her 3 other children, that she specifically has chosen not to provide anything for the benefit of my other children, and she named them James, Pamela, and David, or to any of their descendants, for personal reasons that are well known to each of them. It is my express intention that none of these 3 children of mine, nor any of their descendants, inherit any portion of my estate. You know what they got? They got $10,000 each, because they stole it under joint tenancy, and I had to fight them in probate with an already retired judge in Utah. When that probate matter, and this man, my father, he knew everything about my mother's illness. That man right there. Because he wanted to know, because he wanted her to suffer. So he employed his troops, my other 3 siblings, to do his bad deeds. And they took my mother from my care. Another thing I didn't find out about until the probate matter opened, they tried to get a protection from abuse order against me to protect my mother from me, her best friend, her legal power of attorney, her sole heir, her best friend for the last 2 decades. They tried to get a protection from abuse order. My sister, Pam, this is what she wrote. She says that I've been misappropriating Mom's $4,200 per month in retirement payments. Now, why would they say that? Why? Because that's money that my mom got from my father's pension, and he don't like that. He doesn't like it that his ex-wife gets what he thinks is his. So they named that right there. My sister said in the request for a protection from abuse order against me in Utah, I'm in Delaware, that Mom doesn't want anything to do with me. Never, never, ever. It's insane. They said that I'm going to fly out there to Utah and cause a major scene, either at my home, meaning my sister's home, or at Legacy House, where Mom lives. She goes on to talk about that I was arrested for DUI, endangering her child, and assisting a police officer. Like, this is what my sister wrote. This is what that bitch wrote in an attempt to get a protection from abuse order against me in motherfucking Utah. Oh, and she brought up my brother too and accused me of using illicit drugs. How a lawyer didn't jump on this and take everything that she has and then some, I don't know. But she accused my husband of saying that he's also of great concern and should also be included in this protective order. My husband and I took 100% care of my mother. Not because we were burdened by it. No, because I wanted to. Because I promised my mother that I would. Because I love my mother. Because we were tight. We were best friends. These people came in and accused me of horrible things, did things under the cover of darkness, and then acted like they were entitled to do whatever they wanted. And they just went ahead and did it. But this was denied. But I didn't ever even find out about it until I talked to the first lawyer in Utah. I was accused they've absconded with most of Mom's financials, and we are working on filing an elder abuse case against the both of them, meaning me and my husband. If you need more information about how Christina and her husband have behaved, I could write a 10-chapter book about it. Is that right? Where's the book? Yeah? Where's the book? No, you got denied the protection from abuse order. And what I'll say to my siblings is that I believe you used a false pretense against me for that PFA at Legacy House of Logan telling them that there was a protection from abuse order against me. Lying. I've held a lot of this in for a very long time. This happened in 2018. My mom died at the end of the year 2019. Then I was involved in a probate matter dealing with Utah lawyers. The first lawyer in Utah I talked to, what is this, a protection from abuse order? I'm like, excuse me? What do you mean a protect? She said, well, there was one filed for, but it was not given to you. It was not given, it was not awarded. That was the first time I found out about that. So my family targeted my mother and I from the time that in 2017, when they started calling in these false reports. They called in a false report that my mother was being held hostage. They called in a false report that I stole $400,000. Well, someone might ask, why would that? What is that number from? Well, because those condos in Alexandria, Virginia, that I talked about in my last broadcast, those were awarded to my mother. She sold those in the early 2000s and redid her house. But my siblings and this man, my father, because he believed he had right to ownership to those too, like everything else, decided that those had to have been recently sold. So where's the money? Where's that $400,000 taking a listing on one of those condos and just assuming that they sell for $200,000? Both of those had mortgages on them, which he knows. Really ticks me off what went down. And the fact that my mom was a victim. I'm talking about all this and I'm angry about it. I'm not the victim here. I'm collateral damage. My mom was the victim. She was yanked out of her memory care home. One might ask, how did I find out about it? Because my mom called me. A call from Utah with her on the other end of the line, crying, sobbing. Where am I? Where am I? What is going on? Who are these people? Where's the TV that I had? They took my TV. Complete and utter destruction is what my siblings and my father caused in my relationship with my mother and in my caregiving of my mother, as I promised her and as she had requested of me. That's what they did. My mom had even written an email in advance of problems with them interfering. Her lawyer in Pennsylvania that did her estate put that in there, that she's in fear that her family or her estranged children will interfere in her care should she become incapacitated. And damned if they didn't. And they took me for a flippin' ride. And then the people who are supposed to be the professionals, Susan Seidel Tillman in Salisbury, Maryland, Alan A. Anderson, who ran away like a weak man, and I chased him all the way down to Tucson. Oh yeah, I found him. Oh yeah, I fought the whole way. All these people. If I'm going to go down in the ashes, they're coming with me, but I'm going to be the one to rise up. I have to check the obituary for Alan to see if he's passed yet, because he was already old. The judge in Utah, the probate judge, he was already retired, forgetful, angry, ranted at me. I'm going to talk about that next with the probate matter, because it was opposing counsel that they got in Utah who did the new power of attorney, naming my sister. She named her own self in the power of attorney because my mother was not competent to name my sister, nor would she ever. So the lawyer in Utah and that whole scene, I'm going to bring that up next. And I have the receipts on that too, of how they ran under the cover of darkness, employed people who would do their bidding, and then stuck my mother into a facility in Logan, Utah, where when I contacted them, they said, excuse me, well, we're keeping her in an alcove to keep an eye on her, when I'm telling them exactly what the status is of my mother. but I had already been discounted by apparently being told that I stole from my mother, that I had a protection from abuse, that some sort of legal, who knows what they told them. What I know is that I was not welcome there, and they eventually cut off my phone calls to my mother. They isolated my mother from the only person in the family who cared about her. That is what happened. And I have their names. And I communicated with these people. And they were not interested in knowing the truth or listening or helping my mother. Not one iota. And I'll be calling them out too. So I hope that Nancy Guthrie is found. Savannah Guthrie and her family must be suffering greatly, because I know I suffered greatly when my mother was absconded from the state of Maryland and taken to the state of Utah, and I could get nobody to help me. Not one person stepped up to help me. So, as anybody might tell, this has been extremely disruptive for me, and remembering how terrible it was not knowing where my mom was, even calling my cousin, the one whose mother first interfered. Yeah. And truth be told, the person that abused the person in that family ended up face down in a ditch, shot in the back of the head. So we have some stories in our family. But my aunt interfered, and she had no business interfering, which opened the door by her hiring Susan Seidel Tillman, and Susan Seidel Tillman causing elder abuse. And that's an accusation that I made to her specifically. And she didn't want to hear anything about it. She believed I took $400,000. She thought she was going to be rolling in the little old town of Salisbury, Maryland, with this big elder abuse case. Here's his daughter. She stole from her mother $400,000. No. Incorrect. She was proven wrong. And instead of admitting to it, no, she allowed it to be furthered by allowing another person to come in and take my mother, and then washed her hands of it as if it never even happened. Well, it happened, and I'm here to talk about it. So, on that note, the next video that I post will be about Legacy House of Logan in Logan, Utah. And I'll be calling out the names of the people that I know did what they did and shut me out and shut off comms from my mother. So, yeah, I have a little bit of some rage going on, and deep, deep, deep concern for what the Guthrie family is going through, because what I went through was really bad, not knowing where my mother was and not having anybody help me. Not the police chief, being blown off by the police in Utah. I'm going to talk about it all. So thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. And protect your elders, because there are a boatload of people out there who are just looking to swoop in and take what they can. And in today's environment, they get away with it. Unless you have tens of thousands of dollars to protect your elders, your loved ones, caught up in scams, or even within a family, which, happens, forget about it. Nobody's coming in to save you. You have to save yourself, and you have to fight back hard. So always fight back. I'm going to tell y'all more. It gets even better. And may my mom rest in peace. She knows that I went to bat for her. She knows I didn't let them get away with what they were trying to do. And they got called out and they got shut down, but not before they did a lot of harm to my mother. And she was the intended target, and I was the collateral damage. And they even implicated my husband, which really ticked me off. So let's hope that Nancy is found safe and well, and take care of yourselves and others. Catch you later.